Hello, hello. Welcome to the Women of Dare Whimsy, our show between us girls. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Sarah Cook from sarahlcook.com, and we are talking about our seven lucky things that we do to create success in our life, in our businesses, in our families as gifted and talented women, and things that we do to support ourselves personally as well as support our success. So we're glad that you're here to join us. We also have Dr. Edith here as well as Gail Roddy, and we're thankful that we get to spend some time together. It really is a wonderful thing to share community as gifted and talented women, because so often we get into spaces where we have solitary confinement, if you will, that we put ourselves into because we get so focused on the things that we're doing. And it's nice to gather together to share our insights, to share things that work for us as well as things that haven't worked. And we're not gurus, we're not, people that claim to be experts, but we are women that can share things that work for us and that have worked for people that we have worked with in our professions. So I'd like to go ahead and pop it over to Gail. Gail, why don't you introduce yourself and share where we can find you, and then we will, if you can pop it over to Edith, then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and hello to everyone. I'm Gail Roddy, and I am a blogger and author, a playwright, and I write at my site, gailroddy.com. I share vegan recipes. I'm a vegan, and so healthy food is one of the things I want to talk about today as one of my 7 fun things that I do to support myself. So that's my story, a little bit about Dr. Edith. We want to hear your story as well.
Well, good morning, ladies, and good morning to all of you. Yeah, sharing things that work for us is really, really important. And the 7 things I look at and where I share lots of things at is howtoinlife.com. Yes, how do we make our lives successful? And that's where howtoinlife.com is where I share Dr. Edith's 7 things and all those other thoughts that we have going through our minds. And coming together here today is a great way for us to share because, as Sarah was saying, community is one of the things that really helps to make things work in our life. All right, Sarah, how are you going to start us off?
Well, let's go ahead and talk first about nutrition. I know Gail mentioned that in her introduction, and that is one of my 7 things as well. So I'll start us off in the nutrition piece, is that in order to have luck, to create success, to have things roll smoothly as a gifted woman and as someone raising a family, for me personally, is having those meal times in place and having established routines for when we eat and what we eat and grocery shopping. And so established routines is one of my favorite 7, knowing that I shop on a certain day typically and prep meals throughout the week, but a bulk of the preparation happens on that one day. And then we have meal times that are specific so that people have the nutrition that they need to stay healthy and to have their brain functioning at peak levels throughout the day is really, really key. Gail, what would you like to add to that?
Well, Sarah, everything you said is so important and so very true. I find that what I consider healthy living, first of all, is to eat life. Now, that may sound kind of strange, but what I mean by that is that I have to eat living foods as opposed to foods that have been denatured, that have been processed, that have been added chemicals into them. And I'm not 100% perfect all the time. I'm probably not even 90% perfect. But it's amazing what 75 to 80% of eating living foods influences my brain. And without healthy brain function, as you mentioned, it just seems like everything gets muddled up. And then, of course, as gifted girls, when things get muddled up, we can go to isolation, we can go to fear, we can go to overdrive to try to fix things. And I'll speak for myself, and then I start spinning and spinning into behaviors that just make things even worse. So that's my cornerstone. That's number 1, is to eat living foods as much as possible. Stay away from the processed foods, because as we will continue to speak about the other 6, is that when these things are in place, the other things that support healthy living for me and for my family and for those around me are supported by that cornerstone. Dr. Edith,
Yeah.
what is your number one thing that helps you face life positively?
Well, it's going to be kind of silly, you might say, but obviously is breathing. And I am serious about the breathing thing. And it's so many times that we hold our breath, so many times that we are responding and reacting and not being able to think things through. And it's probably because we aren't breathing really well. You know, it takes it if we inhale all the way through, if we take that moment to pause. And breathing is just a practice way that if you watch it and are aware of it and engage in it consciously, then you get more oxygen in your brain. Now we're talking about healthy brains, and we've all got pretty good sized brains and brains that work really well, so we really want to have them healthy. And so by breathing, we come to that pause. And that pause for me is so very important, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's anger, whether it's overexcitement, overstimulation, overwhelm. Just that breath, that simple breath, slows things down enough, lets me center, lets me come to a point, so then I can say, oh, now I can look at my options. Now I can really think clearly enough to make a decision. And whether that decision to be about healthy eating or whatever, is if that we don't have that, just that breath to slow us down so we can actually think things through and make a conscious choice. So that would be my number one. So we'll go on to a number two, I think.
Well, Dr. Edith, can I just ask one little question? You know, you brought up a very good point. I know you are very much about breathing. And as I was listening to you talk, I was wondering, is this something that, I know it's universal with people, period. We all get caught up in holding our breath, not breathing fully. But do you think as gifted girls, it's even more so in your work? Have you seen any reasons why perhaps we are more into sometimes holding our breath and not fully breathing and going on with a project or a work when we've not stopped to do that? I was just curious, in your work, do you think that this is symptomatic of us gifted brains?
I would say definitely that it's something that we have to be very conscious of because of our intensities, because of our drive, because of our passions, that we react, we move, we don't want to stop, we want everything perfect, and so we're, in many ways, we may seem like we're scattered and can't concentrate, but the truth of the matter is we're so focused on so many things and so intense on it, we don't give ourselves a chance to let the pendulum come back to that center point. So yes, I would say for us that have fast racing minds, we're going from one idea to another idea to another idea to another idea, and we react that way in our world around us many a times. And so that's why I think it's such a great tool and so important for all of us, especially with gifted minds, to be able to realize that slowing down is okay too, and it only takes those few seconds to just break the cycle and give us that point of centering, that point of pause, so that we can go ahead then and make conscious choices versus that react and that passion, that push, the response to stimulation, because our awareness and our perceptions are broad, and we take it all in, and we integrate it all into what we're doing, and all of it is going inside and outside both. And so, yeah, even here, as you can tell, with a little bit of enthusiasm, with a little bit of a passion about it, the speech has speeded up. And so in order for me to even maybe to communicate, it would be a good thing for me to just slow down, take that breath, so that others can understand too. It's a natural tendency for us, so I think we have to be really conscientious about that slow down process.
Wow, that's really impactful for me. I think you're so right, is that we do, as we're speaking today on the show, we can speed up because we have so many ideas. We're so passionate about these 7 things, and you do need to, all of us in between the segments, we probably do need to just stop and take a breath before we move on. That's really interesting and very, very impactful for me. So Sarah, are we going to move on to number 2?
Yeah, let's move on. And I love that you talked about taking a breath. I think it comes for me to my number 2 would be the use of timers, because I find the same thing. Like Dr. Edith and Gail both mentioned, that I stop breathing. And then I end up with a headache, a tension headache, because I haven't gotten enough oxygen to my brain. And so I find that timers are really, really effective for me. In fact, yesterday I had a really bad headache, probably because of, you know, the lack of breathing and stress that gets involved when you stop breathing and breathing effectively, I should say. And so we set lots of different timers to stay on task, as well as to give me many, many breaks during the day so that I could ease the pain that I was facing and be able to, you know, function with all the duties I had yesterday to stay on task. But also timers are really effective when you're raising children, because you're able to help them, you know, not get into that tunnel vision that sometimes happens as a gifted person, where you're driven to complete a task or to make something completely perfect. And it allows them to say, okay, I'm going to spend this much time on this subject, and then I need to move on so that I can work through all of my different, you know, homework assignments or essays for college entrance, you know, type things, as well as scholarships. I mean, those things can consume us if we're driven to perfection, but the use of timers allows us to put a cap on how much time we're willing to spend and to do our best during that time, and then let it go and take some deep breaths and things like that. So what would you say would be your number 2, Gail?
Well, my number 2 would be sleep. And that's what I alluded to when I'm talking about living food, is that if I don't eat living food, then my sleep has a tendency to get disrupted. And oh boy, does that wreak havoc when that happens, when I have lack of sleep. And there's where the timer is very critical for me too, Sarah, because if these little niggling things come in, if I don't quite get enough sleep, then it seems like my brain goes into overdrive as far as now you've got to catch up. You know, and I know gifted girls can relate to this. I'm a little bit behind, so now I've got to go into overdrive to kind of catch up. And so sleep is very important for me to keep my brain calm and healthy so that I don't go into that overdrive. And, you know, you and I talked once about the whole carbohydrate thing. When you lacking sleep, you have a tendency want to crave carbohydrate, which for me is like rocket fuel that just sends my brain even more into overdrive. So I have to really be careful about those 2 things, is living foods, and sleep is absolutely critical. And now I'm going to throw in Dr. Edith's breathing too. I keep forgetting about that, even though we think because it's automatic that breathing is something that just comes. But I'm so happy that she reminds us is that that is such a critical component, to take a pause, breathe, refresh your brain, and then the healthy eating and the sleep. Those are my top 3 ones now.
How about you, Dr. Edith?
Well, I would, you know, I'm going to take off on the sleep that Gail's been talking about, and I'm going to actually put it, remember in kindergarten, and that book that said everything you really, really needed to know you learned in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to talk about naps. And so naps during the middle of the day, or any part of the day, or in the morning, because in the morning, if you're an early riser, and some of our friends here at Dare Whimsy rise at 4 o'clock in the morning. Not this kid, but I'm not late. You know, I'm up by 5:36, but not the 4 o'clock thing. Mm-hmm. But naps are still important. And for me, it's, again, when I'm involved and when I'm engaged, I am 150% engaged. I know physically that's not possible, but you get the point. You get the gist. It's the level of intensity. It's the level of passion. And if I've got 4 projects going on at once, that's minimal, I imagine, for most of us, it's that, okay, if I don't take a break, then I'll go into, as Sarah was saying, headaches, muscle pains, whatever. The body will tell me you're overdoing it because I'm not listening. And so I will take a 10 to 15-minute nap. That lets the muscles relax. It lets the brain go to 0 point because I'm really deliberate in making that a restful time as far as my nap goes, which means I want to get out of my head. And I come back to breathing just because it keeps me focused on something so I don't go into the 101 thoughts that are going through my head. But that 10-15-minute nap sometime during the midday, not late afternoons because then I don't go to bed at night on time, which as Gail says is very important too. But give me 10-15 minutes, middle of the day sometime, and then I'm ready to go because I can refocus, I can reorganize, I can relook at things in a manner without feeling all the pressures of the 14 thoughts I had and the 6 projects that I had going and the ones, like Gail was saying, being behind and now I've got to catch up. Just take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'm fine and I'm refreshed. So I believe, ladies, we have had 2 real strong ones. Gail's put hers top 3, and so we've got another one coming up here. So Sarah, what's your number 3?
All right, well, my number 3 actually was sleep as well, but we'll go ahead and move on to, because sleep is crucial. I've had experiences where because of lack of sleep, I've ended up with depression prognosis and anxiety prognosis, and so I am 100% on board with getting sleep throughout the day if necessary. Like I talked about yesterday, I took multiple naps, little cat naps. I also like using hypnosis type tracks, like meditation tracks. If I can't get out of my head, I'll use the meditation tracks to help guide me into a restful meditative sleep mode. And then let's move on to number 4, just because that's what I'm on now, since we already talked about sleep, and that would be the use of creativity. For me, it is essential that I get out and about and explore nature, which I guess could be a number 4 and number 5, but explore nature and then use it to get my creative juices flowing so that I can color or do mandalas or do some watercolors, but just to have that experience in nature and then use that as fuel to kind of take a mind vacation, if you will, and do something creatively with that sensory input. And that allows me to perform on both sides of my brain so that I'm not overtaxing the one side compared to the other. I'm giving myself a brain rest, and then I can come back to doing what I was working on with the projects and the deadlines and things like that. So I know that these other ladies have probably similar ideas because we've talked about these things before on the use of nature as a lucky thing to do and a way to create success in our life. So Gail, what would you have to add to that?
Well, that segues right into my number 4, which is exercise and getting out in nature and walking or running, as I sometimes do. And this morning when I was on my walk, I get up at 4:30 and I walk the dog, and then I come and I take a long walk. I come back home, drop him off, and then I go to the park and take a longer walk. Well, now, at that early in the morning, it's pitch dark now that it's October. I live in the North Country, and so now it's getting cold. So I was thinking this morning, oh shoot, now I'm going to have to switch my exercise routine. Not going to be able to get out as much in nature early in the morning because it's dark, and you have to be concerned about safety. And also pretty soon the ice and snow will be coming. It's a little hazardous to be out running and walking, although people around here don't let that stop them. There are runners that run when it's 20 below zero, and that's just a fact. So now it's time for me to shift. It's the season of shifting, letting go of things that maybe worked a few months ago, but now you have to shift into a new season. So I was thinking about, okay, now I'm going to have to start, I'm going to join the Community Center Health Club, so I'll have somewhere to go and exercise inside, which is not as good as being in nature, but we have to adapt. We have to simply change our format to deal with when things are just not as optimal as they were at another time. Spring will be right around the corner, and I will be able to get out again. But exercise is critical for me in the morning. That's another thing Dr. Edith knows about, is that oxygen, bringing that oxygen in. It helps me to really open up and really breathe like that early in the morning. So that's absolutely critical for me. Dr. Edith, what have you had to say for your number 4?
Oh, well, we're combining things here, which is normal for us multi-talented, gifted individuals. We're putting it all together. It all comes together. It's all integrated. So we've talked about creativity, and we're talking about exercise. You know, exercise is an important part of my day, and so I'm going to call it play. And so that play can be exercise, that play can be creativity, but I purposely schedule play. And sometimes it's a big play, okay? So the next big thing I've got coming up on my agenda is my brother wants to go skydiving. So I guess we're going to go skydiving over the arches in Utah. I think that's going to be a beautiful view to do, but that's being actually put in the calendar. Something new, something totally different, something that will stimulate me physically, mentally, and emotionally, and spiritually to be able to do things. So, yeah, play is important. Even if it's, you know, we're talking about exercise, that can be play too. 10 minutes, and in my walks now, many a times I'll take my camera, and so then I combine the creativity. I get to take some pictures. Sometimes it's a leaf. Sometimes it's my Dr. Seuss tree. Sometimes it's just the fall leaves changing. Sometimes it's water running. Sometimes it's a neighbor's flower. But that just, again, adds in the creativity and the exercise, being outdoors in nature, and it's all play. And it's okay to have permission to play. You see, I want to stay in kindergarten. Have you figured it out yet? I want to take my naps. I want to play. Yeah, I don't want to grow up. So that's all part of it.
Hey, everything what's the name of the book? Everything I Know I Learned in Kindergarten. So, Dr. Edith, you're right in there.
Yeah. And we're all together on it, I think, as we're combining our different things here as far as what makes life work for us. You may use different words. You may have just a little different twist on it. Gail was talking about indoor exercise, outdoor exercise. And Sarah has talked about how important nature is. Yes, I want to hug my tree. I want to watch the little birds fly. I want to watch whatever's going. You know, I just spent the weekend up in the National Forest. That was absolutely marvelous, quiet. And yet, everything that was going on, because it's a season change, which we've also been talking about. As seasons change, outdoors we have to change our routines a little bit. That's that adjustment and everything like that. And it can be playful on how we approach it. So, Sarah, what do you have next?
All right. Well, the next thing I wanted to share is something based on what you shared. And that it's important for us to connect spiritually, spiritual connection. And I really enjoy having time to be in Scripture, time to pray, time to meditate. And I know that we've talked about that on other shows as well, but starting my day centered and in communication with God is really important to me. And other people have other beliefs, so they do what works for them. But that has been super key for me, grounding myself first thing in the morning and oftentimes throughout the day. If I don't start grounded, you know, working out as well as having time to center myself spiritually, I find I get really off in lots of different directions and I lose focus much more easily. So it's important for me to get centered and stay focused on what is the best and highest use of my time throughout the day, and that's the thing that helps me the most first thing in the morning. How about you, Gail?
Well, that's my next one too, Sarah. Isn't that interesting? Meditation for me. And I don't follow any specific meditative formula that is out there in the books. I've kind of made up my own, and as life changes, the seasons change, frequently my meditative possibilities change too. They've changed from what they were perhaps 10 years ago because I'm 10 years older and hopefully 10 years wiser. So everything changes with the seasons of my life. But meditation, yes, having something that I read that is very uplifting, very grounding at the same time. And many times when I'm up early like that in the morning, I will simply sit and just, I have lots of plants in my living room. And since the house is so very quiet with all the animals gone back to bed after mom feeds them, I simply sit and watch their calmness, their breathing as they sleep, and look around at the plants as they, you can just feel them, their aliveness and what they are doing to cleanse the air. When I just stop and sit with that for 20 minutes in the morning, that is just so refreshing for me, so invigorating on a calm level. And then the exercise comes afterwards where I get the breathing, get the muscles going. But before that, that 20 minutes of simply calm, meditative pose, just in my space. I don't need any tools. I don't need any specific clothes. I simply sit in the quietness of my mind and the space around me. So that's very important to me. Dr. Edith, I know you have something very important coming next.
Well, and we're going to need to kind of move through, so I'd like to say one of the things is being able to say no, being able to limit the requests that are made upon me. Can we do it? That's not the question. We're multi-talented. We can do many, many things, and we can probably do it all. So being able to say no is an important thing for self-care. I'd also like to add that I use such things as flower essences and ginseng acupressure. Again, being able to bring centering back to me and being able to know my connection with that which guides us around. And I also would like to ask just simple pastimes such as the reading, as the crocheting, which can be for those things can be also meditative also, but also then just being in conjunction and in connection with family and friends. So those are all part of what helps me stay balanced and join in and keep all these multifacets about being a gifted woman embraced and engaged and managed. All right, Sarah, where are we at now as we begin to wind down our half hour of joining all these women that and possibly men that have joined us in Dare Whimsy?
Well, we are about out of time, like you talked about. We're winding up the show. And Gail, have you shared all of your 7?
I haven't, but Dr. Edith kind of summed it up by saying gathering here at Dare Whimsy is really one of the things too that is very important to me, to gather with multi-generation women, to learn from one another, not only to share our stories, share our feelings, share our thoughts, sharing what nurtures us as we've done here today. That has become critical for me. This gathering here every Wednesday morning is so encouraging, and I just want to thank all you ladies for being here with me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for being with us on the show. We talked about so many different lucky 7 things today. We talked about ways that we could manage ourselves personally and health-wise. We talked about taking care of our minds. We talked about the use of timers. We talked about vacations and creativity and grounding ourselves. We had a lot of different conversations and things that work for us, and you personally will find things that work for you. And it's really important that you give yourself permission to make choices that work for you, permission to do things that matter for you, because we get to choose to own our own lives. And as gifted women, so many times we get caught up in the demands that other people place on us, and we forget that it's okay. Not just okay, it's essential and crucial that we make those choices that are most empowering for ourselves so that we can live our best life, and also that we can empower others because we're living in our gifted zone, that we learn to say no, like Dr. Edith mentioned. We have lots of other things that we could cover today, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up by letting you know that you can find us at darewhimsy.com. Every Thursday we have a sister post, we call it, that goes out where it shares ideas from each of us. And then you can also follow us home with the links that are on that blog post. You can follow us home to our own personal websites. You can also tell us a little bit about what you're doing and leave a comment. in the comments there to tell us what you're doing and what works for you. Thank you for being with us today. You can join us every Wednesday live at our show Between Us Girls. It's 10 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Pacific, and 11 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for being with us. We're glad you enjoyed the show. Bye-bye.